I started working at 16, never took a dime, paid for my own college, and bought my first house all by myself. Then my parents turned around and sued me, claiming I stole my sister's future. Can you even imagine that moment? You finally achieve your lifelong dream, buying your own home, only for your own parents to serve you with a lawsuit demanding 70% of its value. This isn't just a story about money. It's about a betrayal so profound it completely shattered everything I thought I knew about family.
Hi, I'm Amanda.
I'm 29, and for as long as I can remember, I've been working nonstop. Since I was 16, I've held every job imaginable to support myself. I worked my way through college, paid off all my student loans, and finally, after years of saving, accumulated enough for a down payment on a modest house. Getting those keys should have been the proudest moment of my life. Instead, my hands trembled as I stared at court papers. My own parents were suing me for 70% of my home's value, asserting I had stolen my younger sister Emma's future. Our family lived in a modest suburb of Minneapolis. My dad, John, worked in insurance, and my mom, Karen, was a part-time receptionist. Then there was me, and Emma, who was 8 years younger. To outsiders, we likely appeared to be a typical middle-class family. But behind closed doors, money was a constant simmering source of tension. Our house echoed with arguments about finances. Bills consistently piled up, and hushed conversations would abruptly halt the moment I entered a room. Looking back, the issue wasn't a lack of income, but rather poor financial management. What truly stung, even as a child, was the obvious favoritism shown toward Emma from an early age. Emma was always the special one, the child with real potential. They'd say, Emma has natural talent, or Emma could really be somebody. For me, the unspoken message was unmistakably clear. Asterisk, you're ordinary. Average. Nothing exceptional worth investing in. Asterisk, by 14, I had fully internalized this belief. I became the practical, responsible one. I began helping our elderly neighbor, Mrs. Peterson, with chores after school. She'd pay me $10 an hour to vacuum, dust, and organize her medications. That was my initial taste of financial independence. I used the money for school supplies, clothes, and even the occasional ice cream with friends. My parents never inquired about the source of these items. They simply seemed relieved not to have to provide them. At 16, I landed my first official job at Sweet Dreams Bakery. I'd walk straight from school, work until 7:30 p.m., then return home to start my homework. Diane, the owner, became a genuine mentor. She taught me everything, not just baking, but customer service, inventory management, and crucially, how to save money. The day I received my first paycheck was exhilarating, but the excitement quickly soured. I'd planned to open a savings account, envisioning my college future. Instead, my father sat me down. Now that you're earning money, you need to contribute, he stated, sliding a calculator across the table. 30% of your earnings comes to us for rent, food, and utilities. I stared in disbelief. But Dad, I'm only 16. I thought I should be saving for college. My mother chuckled from the doorway. Amanda, be realistic. With your grades, you'd be better off learning a trade. Besides, Emma will need a college fund. She has a real future ahead of her. That 30% rule became a fixed expectation. Throughout high school, I never missed a payment. All the while, I watched Emma receive gift after gift. $200 monthly piano lessons, ballet classes 3 times a week, and a newly redecorated room with beautiful furniture, while I still slept in my childhood twin bed. My daily routine turned grueling. School, work, then homework until midnight, with double shifts on weekends. Summer breaks were spent working full-time instead of enjoying typical teenage freedom. If I ever dared to buy something new for myself, my mother would scold. Another new shirt, Amanda? You should be more responsible with your money, just after spending $300 on Emma's special ballet costume. In my junior year, I took on a second job at the local library, telling my parents it was for extra spending money. In truth, it was my clandestine college fund. The pay was lower, but it provided quiet hours for studying during slow periods. And my grades actually improved. Mrs. Peterson, who had truly become a grandmother figure to me, noticed my profound exhaustion. Amanda dear, you're working yourself to the bone, she said, pouring me hot chocolate. When I explained my situation, tears welled in her eyes. Your parents should be supporting your dreams, not the other way around. She began paying me extra, firmly insisting I put it directly into my college fund. By senior year, despite my insane schedule, I maintained a 3.8 GPA and had nearly $8,000 saved for college. My guidance counselor had more faith in me than my own family. When acceptance letters arrived, my parents seemed more annoyed than proud. College is expensive, my father warned. Don't come crying to us when you can't afford it. I calmly assured them I wouldn't. I never had before. My acceptance to State University, complete with a partial academic scholarship, brought a mixture of pride and sheer terror. The scholarship covered 60%, but that still left 40% plus room and board. My $8,000 would barely cover the first year. My parents' reaction was lukewarm at best. Over dinner, I excitedly shared the news. State University. That's expensive for what it is, my father grumbled, barely looking up. You know, we can't help you with that. I'm not asking for help, I replied. I have my scholarship and savings. I'll figure out the rest. My mother sighed dramatically. I don't understand why you need to go at all. You have a perfectly good job at the bakery. Diane would probably make you assistant manager because… I want more than that, Mom. I want a career, not just a job. Then my father interjected. And what about your contribution to this household? How are we supposed to make up that shortfall? That was the exact moment it clicked. They had been relying on my income for far longer than I'd ever realized. The 30% wasn't about teaching me responsibility. It was about propping up their budget so they could afford Emma's myriad activities. I wasn't a daughter being guided toward independence. I was merely an income source. I'm sorry, but I'm going to college, I stated, surprised by my own unwavering resolve. I've worked for this opportunity, and I'm taking it. The weeks leading up to my departure were filled with cold shoulders and passive-aggressive jabs. My parents acted as though I was abandoning the family. Only Emma, at 11 years old, seemed genuinely happy for me. Move-in day was a solitary experience. My parents claimed they couldn't take time off, so I packed my suitcases and took the bus to campus alone. My roommate, Jennifer, arrived with her entire family, who meticulously set up her side of the room with coordinated bedding, decorative pillows, and family photos. I silently unpacked my second-hand sheets and a single-framed photo of Emma and… That first night, listening to Jennifer chat on the phone with her parents, I cried silently into my pillow. Not out of missing my family, but from the stark realization of how abnormal my relationship with them truly was. The financial reality of college hit me hard. Even with a scholarship, the costs were overwhelming. I secured a serving job at a local restaurant within my first week. The hours were brutal, 5 p.m. to 11 p.m. on weeknights. Straight from classes to work, then studying until early morning. Weekends meant grueling double shifts. By sophomore year, I added a second job as a teaching assistant. Between the two, I managed to cover my living expenses, though I still had to borrow roughly $10,000 per year in student loans. My tiny dorm room became both my sanctuary and my prison. My desk lamp would burn until 3 or 4 a.m. as I struggled with assignments after exhausting shifts. Instant noodles became my staple, not as a cliché, but because they cost less than $1 per meal. I meticulously tracked every penny in a budget spreadsheet, calculating precisely how many hours I needed to work. Jennifer eventually moved out, asserting my late-night studying disrupted her sleep. She was replaced by Jessica, another scholarship student who worked part-time. Jessica understood my situation. My parents help when they can, she explained one night, but there are 5 kids in my family. I'm the first to go to college, so I'm kind of the experiment. At least they support you emotionally, I retorted, failing to mask my bitterness. Jessica looked at me thoughtfully. Your family situation sounds really toxic, Amanda. Have you ever talked to someone about it, like a therapist? I laughed. With what time or money? Therapy is a luxury I can't afford. Despite the relentless challenges, I excelled. My finance and business classes felt profoundly relevant and practical after years of managing my own meager budget. Professors noticed my unwavering work ethic, and one recommended me for a summer internship at Meridian Financial Services after my junior year. That internship proved to be a pivotal turning point. For the first time, I worked in a professional environment where my contributions were genuinely valued. My supervisor, Michael, was thoroughly impressed. The internship paid more than my restaurant and TAPations combined, providing a much-needed financial cushion for my senior year. Throughout those college years, communication with my parents was minimal and almost always revolved around money. They rarely called to check on my well-being or academic progress. Instead, phone calls typically started casually, then inevitably transitioned into requests. Emma needs new pointe shoes for ballet. They're $200. The refrigerator broke. We need $400 for repairs. Emma got accepted to a special summer music camp. It's $2,000. I sent money when I could justify it as helping my sister, rather than simply enabling my parents. But each request left me feeling exploited, not loved. In my senior year, I met Tyler in an advanced finance seminar. Smart, kind, and from a genuinely loving family, he embodied everything I'd never experienced. When he invited me home for Thanksgiving, I witnessed firsthand what a supportive family truly looked like.
His parents asked about my classes, my
Goals, my opinions. They were genuinely interested in me as a person, not as a mere resource. "Why are you crying?" Tyler asked when he found me alone in the guest room that night. "Because I didn't know families could be like yours," I admitted. "I didn't know parents could love their children without conditions." That Thanksgiving weekend fundamentally shifted my perspective on family relationships. I began to understand that what I'd experienced wasn't normal or healthy. And most importantly, I realized I deserved better. I graduated with a bachelor's degree in finance with honors. No one from my family attended the ceremony. Emma wanted to be there, but my parents asserted they couldn't afford the 3-hour drive. Michael, my internship supervisor, had offered me a full-time position at Meridian Financial Services. The starting salary of $50,000 felt astronomical. After years of merely scraping by, my first significant decision was housing. While most colleagues rented trendy apartments, I opted for a tiny studio in an older building, 45 minutes from the office. My rent was only 20% of my take-home pay, allowing me to focus on my next critical goals: paying off student loans and saving for a house. I meticulously crafted a detailed 5-year plan. My lifestyle remained remarkably frugal despite my professional salary. I consistently brought lunch to work, shopped exclusively at discount stores, and still relied on public transportation. Colleagues frequently invited me to happy hours or weekend trips, which I politely declined, knowing each $60 dinner or $300 getaway would inevitably delay my goals. Jessica remained my closest friend. Most people our age aren't thinking about retirement accounts or mortgage rates. She chuckled one evening as we reviewed my budget over cheap pizza. Most people our age didn't have to pay rent to their parents at 16, I retorted. My relationship with Tyler had evolved into something more complex. He respected my ambitious goals but struggled to comprehend why I pushed myself so relentlessly. "You deserve to enjoy life now, not just prepare for some future that might never come," he'd argue. "I am enjoying life," I'd insist. Financial security is worth more to me than temporary pleasures. Our differing perspectives ultimately led to a mutual decision to remain friends. It hurt, but it allowed me to maintain my intense focus. At work, my dedication yielded impressive results. Within 18 months, I was promoted to financial analyst. My salary jumping to $62,000, I maintained my stringent frugal habits, directing all extra income toward my student loans. By the end of my 3rd year at Meridian, I had paid off all $40,000 in loans, built an emergency fund of $12,000, and began serious saving for a house down payment. It felt monumental, a truly significant achievement. Yet I had no one to genuinely share it with. Throughout this period, my relationship with my family remained strained, almost entirely one-sided. The pattern established during college persisted. rare communication unless financial needs arose. Emma was now in high school, excelling in music and academics. My parents spoke of her potential with the same profound reverence. Emma's piano. Teacher thinks she could get into Juilliard, my mother announced during one of our infrequent calls. Of course, the application process and audition prep will be expensive. The unspoken request hung heavy in the air. I had already sent $3,000 that year for Emma's activities. Each time I rationalized it as benefiting my sister, but the line between helping and enabling was blurring significantly. Mom, I said carefully, I have my own financial goals. I can't be Emma's college fund. The silence on the other end was frigid. I see your sister's future means nothing to you now that you have your fancy job and city apartment. The guilt trip was familiar, but this time, something within me resisted. That's not fair. I've helped a lot, but I can't be expected to finance another person's entire education when I just finished paying for my own. The conversation ended badly, with my mother claiming I had changed, become selfish and cold. It hurt, but I held firm. 2 weeks later, my father called with a more direct approach. Emma got accepted to Westfield University. Full 4-year tuition is $40,000 per year. We need to know how much you can contribute. Westfield was prestigious, but astronomically expensive. I was stunned by both the sheer assumption and the requested amount. Dad, that's over $160,000 total. I don't have that kind of money to give. You make good money now. You could take out a loan to help your sister.
That's
What family does. The irony hit me hard. Family helps each other when they can. No one helped me with my education. That was different, he countered. You were always independent, because I wasn't given a choice, I retorted. The conversation quickly devolved into accusations and dredging up old resentments. My father hung up after telling me I was breaking my mother's heart with my selfishness. Despite the immense emotional toll, I remained steadfastly committed to my financial plan. When Emma herself called to inquire about college funding, I adopted a different approach. I can't pay your tuition, Emma, but I can help you apply for scholarships, look into more affordable schools, and teach you how to manage money so you can become independent just like I had to be. Her response genuinely surprised me. I never asked them to put this on you, Amanda. I know how hard you worked for everything you have. That conversation marked the first genuine connection I'd felt with my sister in years. We started talking regularly, with me serving as a sounding board and advisor rather than merely a checkbook. I helped her apply for scholarships and financial aid, which resulted in a substantial package from a state university comparable to mine. My parents were visibly disappointed, viewing it as settling. They continued to pressure me for contributions, which I meticulously earmarked specifically for Emma's textbooks or dorm supplies. By my 5th year at Meridian, now a senior financial analyst earning $78,000, I had finally accumulated enough for a 20% down payment on a modest home. My years of sacrifice and relentless discipline were finally yielding results. What I utterly failed to anticipate, however, was how my family would react, or how their reaction would irrevocably alter everything. House hunting was an exhilarating yet terrifying process. I had precise criteria: a small, well-maintained home in a safe neighborhood with good public transport, priced under $250,000. My agent, Natalie, was remarkably patient. Most first-time buyers your age are looking for condos or continuing to rent, she commented. It's truly impressive you're in a position to buy a house outright. I smiled, feeling a rare surge of pride. I've been working towards this since I was 16. Finally, we found it. A charming 1920s bungalow with 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, a small kitchen, and a tiny backyard. At $220,000, it was perfect. Signing the mortgage papers felt surreal. The loan officer even remarked, "It's highly unusual to see someone your age with such a solid financial foundation. I paid off my student loans 3 years ago." I responded, a wave of pride swelling in my chest. The day I received the keys, I stood alone in the empty living room, overwhelmed with emotion. This house wasn't merely a financial investment. It was deeply psychological. It was tangible proof that I had overcome my upbringing, that I could provide myself the security my parents never had. Jessica and Tyler helped me move in, bringing thoughtful housewarming gifts and champagne. We sat on the floor, eating pizza. To Amanda, Jessica toasted, who worked harder than anyone I know to get here. To having roots, Tyler added, something you deserve more than anyone. After settling in, I decided it was time to invite my family. Naively, I thought seeing my success might finally make them proud. They arrived on a Saturday afternoon. My father critically surveyed the exterior as they walked up the path. "It's small," was his immediate comment upon entering. "Perfect size for me," I replied, striving to remain positive. My mother walked through the rooms with a faint expression of distaste. "This neighborhood isn't very upscale, is it?" "It's safe and convenient to my office," I patiently explained. Emma, now in her second year of college, seemed genuinely delighted. "I think it's awesome, Amanda. You worked so hard for this." I had prepared lunch, hoping for a pleasant atmosphere. As we sat at my new dining table, conversation was superficial at first. Then my mother set down her fork and cleared her throat. "Emma has some news she needs to share." Emma looked down at her plate, clearly uncomfortable. I might have to take a break from school next semester." "What? Why?" I asked, immediately concerned. "The scholarship I had wasn't renewed," she explained quietly. "And my student loan application was denied because of Dad's credit score. We've had some financial setbacks." My father interjected defensively. "Medical bills, car repairs, you know how it is." "So what's the plan?" I asked, already sensing the inevitable direction of the conversation. "Well," my mother began, her tone shifting to one I recognized all too well. "We thought, given your new purchase, that you must be in a very comfortable financial position. I just bought a house." "I'm not exactly flush with cash right now," I countered. "But surely you must have savings left. Or you could take out a home equity loan," my father suggested. "Emma needs about $20,000 for this year." I stared in utter disbelief. "I used all my savings for the down payment. And I am not going to borrow against the house I just bought. So you're just going to let your sister drop out of college?" my mother demanded, her voice rising. "After all we've done for you." The sheer absurdity of her statement left me momentarily speechless. "What exactly have you done for me?" "I've been working and supporting myself since I was 16. I paid for my own education. I bought this house entirely on my own. We raised you," my father declared indignantly. "We put a roof over your head." "A roof I paid rent for as a teenager," I quickly countered. The argument escalated rapidly. My parents accused me of being selfish, of forgetting my roots, of abandoning family in their time of need. I calmly pointed out the years of financial support I had already provided, the complete lack of support I had received, and the blatant unfairness of expecting me to mortgage my future for Emma. "You've always been jealous of the attention Emma received," my mother declared. "This is your way of punishing her for being more talented." "This has nothing to do with Emma," I insisted. "This is about boundaries and reasonable expectations." Emma, who had been silent, finally spoke up. "Please stop fighting. I'll figure something out. I can take a semester off and work full-time." "Absolutely not," my mother snapped. "You are not throwing away your future because your sister is too selfish to help." I turned to Emma directly. "I can help you look into additional scholarship options or maybe work-study programs. There are alternatives to dropping out or going into massive debt. The only alternative is for you to step up and do the right thing," my father insisted. "Family takes care of family. I have been taking care of this family financially since I was a teenager," I stated, my patience finally exhausted. "I am done being your ATM." My father stood up abruptly. "If that's how you feel, then perhaps we need to reconsider what family means. You clearly have the resources to help, but are choosing not to. This house represents years of sacrifice and hard work," I said. "I am not jeopardizing that. That house should be helping secure Emma's future, not sitting here as a monument to your selfishness," my mother declared. As they prepared to leave, my father delivered a parting shot that would prove eerily prophetic. "This is not over, Amanda. if you won't do the right thing voluntarily. There are other ways to ensure family obligations are met. I dismissed it as an empty threat, the kind of dramatic statement my parents often made during heated arguments. I was gravely mistaken. 3 weeks after that disastrous family visit, an envelope arrived from the county court. Inside was a summons informing me that I was being sued by John and Karen Collins, my parents, for 70% of my home's value, approximately $154,000. The legal complaint alleged that I had a moral and implied financial obligation to support my sister's education, and that my purchase of a home instead constituted financial abandonment and theft of family resources. The document actually used the phrase, stealing her sister's future, to describe my home purchase. I sat on my living room floor, papers scattered around me, utterly unable to process what I was reading. This couldn't be real. Parents don't sue their children over money. They don't drag family disputes into courtrooms. Yet, the official seal and case number confirmed this was no joke. My hands trembled as I dialed my parents' number, hoping that this was some elaborate scare tactic. My father answered, "Dad, I just received court papers." "Are you and Mom actually suing me?" "We are simply seeking what is fair," he replied, his tone eerily calm. "You refuse to help your sister voluntarily, so we are pursuing legal means. This is insane. You cannot possibly think a court will force me to give you my house money. Our lawyer thinks we have a case based on family obligation and implied contract. You benefited from family resources growing up. Now you owe a return on that investment." The conversation became increasingly surreal as my father outlined their position, as if it were perfectly reasonable to sue one's own child. "Dad, please. This will destroy any relationship we still have," I pleaded. "That is your choice, Amanda. Do the right thing, and we can put this behind us." After hanging up, I sat in stunned silence for nearly an hour before finally calling Jessica. She arrived 30 minutes later with wine and a fierce determination to help. "This cannot be legal," she insisted, reading through the documents. "They cannot just claim a right to your house because they want the money." The very next morning, I called in sick to work for the first time in my entire career and immediately began searching for a lawyer. By noon, I had an appointment with Linda Cohen, an attorney specializing in family law. Linda's office was warm and inviting, a sharp contrast to the chilling reality of my situation. After thoroughly reviewing the documents, she looked up at me with a blend of sympathy and professional assessment. "I've seen some contentious family disputes in my 20 years," she began, "but parents suing a child for buying their own home is certainly unique." She paused. "The good news is their case has virtually no legal merit. They cannot actually take 70% of your house. There is no legal principle that would entitle parents to their adult child's assets based on an implied obligation to a sibling. The challenge," she explained, "was that defending myself would still drain both my finances and emotional energy." We then discussed strategy. Linda advised me to meticulously compile evidence of my financial independence, tax returns showing I hadn't been claimed as a dependent since age 18, irrefutable proof of paying for my own education, and detailed documentation of every dollar I had already given to my family. "Their case hinges on the idea that you owe them something," she explained. "We need to demonstrate clearly that, if anything, the balance is tilted heavily in the other direction." The following weeks blurred into a chaotic mix of legal preparations, gnawing anxiety, and severely disrupted sleep. My work performance inevitably suffered. Fortunately, Michael, my supervisor, noticed my pervasive distraction. When I finally explained the situation, his reaction profoundly validated what I had been struggling to understand. "Amanda, what your parents are doing is not normal. It's exploitative and abusive, hearing someone in a position of authority so clearly name the dynamic was both agonizing and incredibly liberating. For so many years, I had normalized my family's behavior, making excuses, accepting blame. Now, outsiders were confirming what I had only recently begun to acknowledge. My relationship with my parents was fundamentally unhealthy. Support poured in from unexpected places. Colleagues offered quiet encouragement. Neighbors brought comforting meals. Even Tyler, despite our complicated past, became a steady, reassuring presence, helping me organize intricate financial records and providing unwavering emotional support. Jessica forcefully suggested therapy. This is trauma, Amanda. You absolutely need professional support. I found Dr. Russell, a therapist specializing in family estrangement and financial abuse, who offered sliding scale fees. Our sessions helped me recognize deeply ingrained patterns of manipulation and begin to unravel the pervasive guilt that had been instilled in me since childhood. Your parents created a narrative where your role was to provide, not to be provided. For Dr. Russell clarified, children are not supposed to be financial assets to their parents. That reverses the natural order of nurturing. As the court date drew nearer, I received an unexpected phone call from Emma. We hadn't spoken since the disastrous lunch. Amanda, I just found out about the lawsuit, she said, her voice trembling. I had no idea they were doing this. I never asked them to sue you. You didn't know? I asked, genuinely surprised. No, I would never want this. I am so sorry they're putting you through this. Her call powerfully reinforced Linda's advice. Separate my feelings about Emma from my feelings about my parents. Emma was just as much a victim of their dysfunctional expectations as I was, simply in a different way. The lawsuit consumed my every thought and invaded my dreams. I had recurring nightmares about becoming homeless, about judges ordering me to hand over my house keys. During waking hours, I obsessively checked my bank accounts. Linda reassured me repeatedly that such an outcome was extraordinarily unlikely. The law simply doesn't work the way your parents think it does, she explained. Parents cannot force adult children to pay for their siblings' education, no matter how much they believe it's morally right. Still, the mere existence of the lawsuit felt like a profound violation. The home that should have represented security and achievement had become a source of immense anxiety and relentless conflict. The parents who should have celebrated my milestone were actively attempting to seize it from me. As we prepared for court, Linda helped me meticulously gather evidence of the financial contributions I had already made. Bank statements clearly showed transfers totaling over $15,000 over the past decade. Emma even provided a written statement confirming she had neither asked for nor expected my financial support. We have a strong case, both factually and legally, Linda assured me the night before. Try to get some rest. Rest, however, proved utterly elusive. I kept replaying the thought of facing my parents across a courtroom. Our deeply private family dysfunction laid bare for public display. The final severance of what little connection remained felt both inevitable and utterly devastating. The county courthouse was an imposing stone edifice, clearly designed to intimidate. I arrived early with Linda, dressed in a conservative navy suit, desperately hoping to project a confidence I certainly didn't feel. We took our seats at the defendant's table. Remember, speak only when addressed by the judge, Linda reminded me. Let me handle the arguments. If you need to respond, write it down. My parents arrived with their attorney, a gaunt man with wire-rimmed glasses and a perpetual frown. They didn't acknowledge my presence. My mother stared rigidly straight ahead while my father whispered intently to their lawyer. The stark physical proximity coupled with such immense emotional distance created a surreal atmosphere. Judge Harriet Wilson entered the courtroom, a woman in her 60s with silver hair and an expression that plainly suggested she'd seen everything. I have been on the bench for 17 years, she began, looking over her reading glasses at both parties, and I must say, this is one of the more unusual family disputes I have encountered. She turned to my parents. Mr. and Mrs. Collins, you are suing your daughter for 70% of the value of her home to pay for your younger daughter's college education. Is that correct? My parents' lawyer stood. Yes, Your Honor. My clients believe their elder daughter has a moral obligation to support her sister's education, particularly given the family's financial contributions to her upbringing. Judge Wilson's expression remained neutral, but her tone unmistakably sharpened. Moral obligations and legal obligations are not always the same thing, Counselor. Please explain the legal basis for your claim. What followed was a torturous argument about implied family contracts and conditional support during minority. The lawyer contended that by accepting parental support as a child, I had implicitly agreed to a reciprocal obligation to support my sister. Linda calmly took notes beside me, occasionally squeezing my arm when particularly outrageous claims were made. When it was her turn, she rose with composed confidence. Your Honor, this case has no basis whatsoever in family law or contract law. Miss Collins was a minor child under her parents' care, which is a legal obligation parents voluntarily assume when they have children. Children do not contract to receive basic necessities from their parents. She methodically dismantled each argument, presenting exhaustive documentation of my financial independence since age 16, tax returns showing I hadn't been claimed as a dependent since high school, undeniable proof of self-financing my education, and meticulous bank records showing substantial financial assistance I had already provided to my family. Far from taking from the family, Miss Collins has contributed over $15,000 to her parents and sister since she was 80, money she was under no legal obligation to provide, Linda explained, submitting the bank records. The judge reviewed them with keen interest. Mr. and Mrs. Collins, were you aware of these financial contributions from your daughter? My father shifted uncomfortably. Those were gifts, not related to this matter. $15,000. In gifts seems quite generous from someone you are characterizing as selfish and unwilling to support family, Judge Wilson observed dryly. My mother spoke for the first time. That money was nothing compared to what Emma needs for her education. Amanda has a good job and just bought a house. She clearly has resources she is withholding. The judge turned to me directly. Miss Collins, what is your current financial situation after purchasing your home? With Linda's nod, I explained my careful budgeting, the years of dedicated saving, and my current mortgage. I am not wealthy, Your Honor. I worked multiple jobs through college, paid off my student loans through strict budgeting, and saved for years to afford a modest home. I simply cannot afford to pay for another person's entire education without jeopardizing my own financial security. Judge Wilson nodded thoughtfully before turning back to my parents. Mr. and Mrs. Collins, what financial planning did you do for your younger daughter's education? My parents exchanged uncomfortable glances. We expected scholarships would cover most costs, my father finally admitted. Emma is very talented. And did you not make the same expectation for your elder daughter's education? The judge pressed. Amanda was always independent, my mother said dismissively. She made her own way, because I was given no choice. I interjected immediately, instantly regretting breaking protocol. The judge gave me a measured look, but did not reprimand me. Instead, she directed her next question to my parents.
Did
you contribute financially to Miss Collins's college education? We could not afford to at the time, my father replied. Yet, you expected her to afford her sister's education now. Judge Wilson's tone made her skepticism abundantly clear. The proceedings continued with testimony about the family dynamics and financial expectations. My parents' lawyer attempted to frame the situation as a simple family dispute where the court should enforce fairness between siblings. Linda countered by emphasizing the legal autonomy of adult children and the complete absence of any contractual obligation. As the arguments wound down, the courtroom door opened quietly, and Emma slipped in, taking a seat in the back row. Our eyes met briefly, and I saw a mixture of embarrassment and resolute determination in her expression. After a final round of statements, Judge Wilson called for a 15-minute recess. As we waited, Emma hesitantly approached our table. Can I speak to the judge? She asked Linda. About what? Linda inquired cautiously. About the fact that I never asked for any of this. And I don't want Amanda to pay for my education this way. Linda explained that the judge might not allow additional testimony at this stage, but advised Emma to stay close. When Judge Wilson returned, she surprised everyone by calling Emma forward. I understand you are Emma Collins, the younger sister whose education is at the center of this dispute. Do you wish to make a statement to the court? Emma stood nervously at the center of the courtroom. Yes, Your Honor. I want to make clear that I never asked my parents to sue my sister. I didn't know about this lawsuit until recently. I would never want Amanda to be forced to pay for my education. especially not by giving up her home that she worked so hard to buy. My mother made a small noise of protest, which the judge instantly silenced with a stern look. Emma continued, gaining confidence. Amanda has always helped me when she could. She helped me apply for scholarships and financial aid. She taught me how to budget and manage money skills our parents never taught either of us. I have options. For continuing my education without taking anything from my sister, Judge Wilson thanked Emma for her powerful statement, then delivered her ruling. Having reviewed all evidence and testimony in this matter, I find the plaintiff's claim wholly without merit. There is no legal basis for forcing an adult child to finance a sibling's education, regardless of any perceived moral obligation. Furthermore, the evidence clearly shows that Ms. Amanda Collins has already provided substantial financial support to her family over the years, far beyond any reasonable expectation, she continued, addressing my parents directly. Mr. and Mrs. Collins, the court is deeply troubled by your apparent differential treatment of your daughters. You seem to have expected financial independence from one while assuming ongoing financial support for the other. This is not a matter for legal remedy, but rather family counseling. The judge dismissed the case and, in a final unexpected move, ordered my parents to pay my legal fees, stating that their lawsuit was frivolous and potentially vexatious. As the courtroom began to clear, I remained seated, utterly overwhelmed by the profound finality of what had just occurred. The legal battle was unequivocally over, but the emotional damage felt utterly irreparable. My parents left without speaking. To me, their rigid backs and quickened pace clearly conveying their anger at the outcome. Emma approached tentatively. Amanda, I am so sorry about all of this. It's not your fault, I assured her. Can we talk? Maybe get coffee or something? I nodded, not quite trusting myself to speak further. Whatever came next in our family, relationships, nothing would ever be the same again. The lawsuit had forced an undeniable confrontation with decades of dysfunction that could no longer be ignored or excused. The days following the court hearing blurred into a mix of conflicting emotions. Relief that the legal threat to my home was gone mingled with profound sadness about the fractured state of my family relationships. I took a week off work to process everything, spending quiet days in the house that had become both sanctuary and battleground. I didn't hear from my parents, nor did I anticipate it. The courtroom had explicitly clarified what had been implicitly true for years. Our relationship was fundamentally broken, built on obligation rather than genuine love, expectation rather than unconditional acceptance. The lawsuit hadn't created this dysfunction. It had merely exposed it in the harshest possible light. Linda had strongly recommended continuing therapy, advice I wholeheartedly embraced. Dr. Russell helped me understand that grieving for a relationship that never truly existed is still valid grief. You are mourning the parents you deserved but never had, she explained, emphasizing that loss is real, even if the relationship itself was unhealthy. We focused on establishing what she termed internal boundaries, the emotional counterpart to the legal boundaries the court had affirmed. I learned to identify and challenge the relentless voice of guilt that had been deeply instilled in me since childhood, the pervasive belief that I was selfish for having my own needs and desires. 2 weeks after the court case, Emma and I met for coffee at a neutral spot. The conversation felt awkward initially, years of family dynamics creating an invisible barrier between us. I moved out of Mom and Dad's house. She volunteered after some preliminary small talk. I'm staying with my friend Sophia until I figure things out. Are you still in school? I asked. She nodded. I reduced my course load and got a job at the campus bookstore. It'll take me longer to graduate, but I'll get there eventually. I also applied for additional scholarships, just like you suggested. I'm proud of you, Emma, I said, truly meaning it. Taking control of your own path isn't easy. I had a good example, she replied, meeting my eyes directly. I always admired your independence, even though I didn't understand until recently that it wasn't by choice. That conversation marked the genuine beginning of a new relationship between us, one based on mutual respect rather than the competitive dynamic our parents had deliberately fostered. Emma began to openly share her struggles and triumphs with me as a peer, not as the favored child seeking handouts. As months passed, I slowly but surely rebuilt my life, anchoring it in truth rather than family mythology. My home, now completely free from legal threat, transformed into a true haven. I painted walls, cultivated a small garden, and gradually furnished rooms with pieces that genuinely brought me joy. Each improvement felt like a powerful affirmation of my right to create security for myself. Work provided another profound source of stability. Michael, understanding the personal crisis I had so bravely weathered, offered me additional responsibilities that quickly led to another promotion. The increased income allowed me to start a modest investment portfolio, further solidifying my goal of long-term financial security. Jessica remained a steadfast, invaluable friend, celebrating every small victory and providing crucial perspective during moments of doubt. "You know what amazes me most about you?" she remarked during a Saturday spent helping me install kitchen shelves. "Your capacity for joy despite everything. You never became bitter." Her observation surprised me, yet she was absolutely right. Despite the profound family dysfunction, I hadn't allowed it to define my entire worldview. I still found pleasure in simple things, still believed in the enduring possibility of healthy relationships. Inspired by my own difficult journey, I launched a blog focused on financial independence for young adults from challenging family backgrounds. The response was overwhelming, with hundreds of comments from people sharing incredibly similar experiences. What began as a personal outlet swiftly evolved into a vibrant online support community, complete with regular video chats and invaluable resource sharing. Through this platform, I connected with countless others who deeply understood the particular challenges of building stability without traditional family support. We discussed practical matters like building credit and emergency funds, but also vital emotional issues like setting boundaries and managing insidious guilt. The community became an unexpected source of profound healing, a potent reminder that shared experience powerfully diminishes isolation. 6 months after the court case, I received a handwritten letter from my mother. The envelope sat unopened on my counter for 3 days before I finally mustered the courage to read it. "Amanda," it began, "the past months have given me time to reflect on our relationship and my role as your mother. While I still believe families should support each other, I recognize now that we placed unfair burdens on you from a young age. This realization has been painful to acknowledge." The letter continued with an awkward but seemingly genuine attempt at an apology, stopping short of taking full responsibility but acknowledging that mistakes had indeed been made. She requested a meeting to begin healing our family, a phrase that simultaneously triggered both hope and skepticism. After discussing the letter thoroughly with Dr. Russell, I agreed to meet my mother at a cafe near my office, a public place where I could easily leave if necessary. The meeting was tense and uncomfortable, punctuated by long silences and carefully chosen words. "Your father still believes we were right," she admitted toward the end. "But I miss having you in my life. I cannot return to the old dynamic," I told her firmly. "Any relationship we have moving forward has to be based on mutual respect, not obligation." She nodded slowly. "I'm not sure what that looks like, but I would like to try." This tentative reconnection was neither a fairy tale reconciliation nor a complete failure. Over the subsequent months, my mother and I established a careful, limited relationship. We met occasionally for coffee, with conversations carefully focused on neutral topics. My father remained distant, unwilling or unable to truly acknowledge the damage done, though he did stop his actively hostile behavior. A year after buying my house, I hosted a small anniversary gathering. Emma attended, bringing her new boyfriend and a homemade cake. Jessica and Tyler came, along with colleagues who had supported me during the lawsuit. My mother politely declined the invitation with a note, perhaps understanding that full family reconciliation, if it ever came, was still a distant prospect. As I looked around at the people who had chosen to be in my life, who valued me for who I was rather than what I could provide, I recognized the profound shift in my understanding of family. Family was not merely a biological connection or an obligation, but a community built on mutual support and genuine care. The house that had become a bitter point of contention was now unquestionably mine, not just legally, but emotionally. Each mortgage payment felt like a powerful affirmation. Each home improvement, a clear declaration of my right to create security for myself. The most valuable lesson from this painful journey was understanding the fundamental difference between guilt and responsibility. For years, I had carried immense guilt about not meeting my parents' expectations, about prioritizing my own needs, about daring to set boundaries. Therapy and experience had taught me that responsibility to oneself is not selfishness, but self-preservation. That boundaries are not rigid walls, but healthy definitions of where one person ends and another begins. I still had moments of doubt and sadness, days when I mourned the family relationships I would never have. But these episodes became significantly less frequent and less intense as I built a life meticulously aligned with my own values, rather than imposed expectations. As I stand in my kitchen today, preparing for another day in the home I so fiercely fought to protect, I realize that true freedom comes not from external validation, but from internal conviction. My parents may never fully understand or accept my choices, but their understanding is no longer necessary for my peace. This house is more than wooden beams and mortgage payments. It represents my unyielding right to define my own path, to establish healthy boundaries, and to create security on my own terms. The journey here was longer and harder than it should have been, but that only makes the achievement infinitely more meaningful. What would you do if faced with a choice between family expectations and your own well-being? Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with loved ones? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. And if this resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share with others who might need to hear that standing up for yourself is not selfish, but absolutely necessary. Thank you for listening.
Take care. Good luck.